welcome to Peak Ambition. Today I want to share something that might just shift your perspective in the middle of whatever challenges you're facing. Have you ever felt like life was testing you at every turn? Like doors were closing, things were falling apart, and nothing seemed to be going your way? What if I told you that those very moments could be signs that God is preparing something incredible for you? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you might see your struggles in a whole new light. There are moments in life when everything seems to crumble. People you thought would be by your side forever suddenly drift away. The job you poured your heart into comes to an end. The plans you carefully crafted fall apart without warning. It feels like the universe has conspired against you, stripping away everything familiar. And naturally, the first thought is, why me? But what if I told you that this breaking down isn't a punishment? It's a clearing. You see, when God is preparing something great for you, He often begins by making space. Imagine trying to fill a cluttered room with beautiful new furniture. No matter how exquisite the new pieces are, there's simply no room until the old, worn-out furniture is removed. The same goes for your life. You might not recognize it now, but the people and situations that are leaving were never meant to stay for the next chapter. It's easy to cling to what's comfortable. Even toxic relationships, unfulfilling jobs, and stagnant environments can feel safer than the unknown. But growth rarely happens in comfort, so when life starts falling apart, it's often a sign that God is rearranging things. That friendship that suddenly ended, maybe it was preventing you from forming new, deeper connections. That job that slipped through your fingers, perhaps it was limiting your potential, holding you back from the opportunities you were destined for. And let's talk about those carefully laid plans that didn't work out. You did everything right. You visualized success, worked hard, and stayed dedicated, yet nothing went as expected. It feels unfair, even cruel. But sometimes what we think we want isn't aligned with what we truly need. God sees the full picture, the places you'll go, the people you'll meet, the experiences that will shape you. And if those plans were taking you in the wrong direction, His love for you is too great to let you stay on that path. But here's the hardest part: surrender. When everything falls apart, the natural instinct is to fight, to cling, to fix what's broken. You might convince yourself that if you try a little harder, if you just hold on, things will go back to how they were. But have you ever considered that the breakdown is the breakthrough in disguise? Instead of resisting, what if you leaned into the uncertainty? What if you trusted that losing what's not meant for you is making space for what is? In the middle of the storm, it's difficult to see the purpose. The loneliness is heavy. The fear of the unknown creeps in. You might wonder if you did something wrong, if you missed a sign or made a mistake. But sometimes the only thing you did wrong was outgrow the people and places you once called home. Growth means change, and change often feels like loss before it feels like freedom. When God clears something from your life, it's really comfortable, but it's always intentional. He's not asking you to suffer, He's asking you to trust. And trust doesn't mean having all the answers. It means believing that, even in the chaos, something greater is on the horizon. It means knowing that the emptiness you feel now will one day be filled with purpose, joy, and opportunities beyond anything you could have imagined. So if your world feels like it's falling apart, take heart. It's not a sign of failure, it's a divine reset. The people who walked away, they served their role in your story, and now their chapter has ended. The job you lost, it was a stepping stone, not your final destination. The plans that unraveled, they were detours leading you closer to where you're truly meant to be. Let go of what's no longer serving you. Stand firm in your faith, and remember, when life breaks you down, God is often setting you up for something far greater than you ever imagined. Waiting can be one of the hardest things to endure. It's that unsettling in-between space where nothing seems to be happening. You've prayed, worked, and hoped, yet the breakthrough you're longing for is nowhere in sight. Every day feels like more of the same, and no matter how much you try to move forward, it's as if you're standing still. It's easy to feel forgotten, wondering if God has left you on red while others around you seem to receive their blessings. But the truth is, the waiting season isn't a sign of neglect, it's a sign of preparation. When God is preparing something great for you, the waiting isn't wasted. It may feel like time is slipping through your fingers, but every moment serves a purpose. Just because you can't see the progress doesn't mean it isn't happening. Think of a seed planted deep in the soil. For weeks, there's nothing visible on the surface, but beneath the ground, the seed is breaking open, roots are forming, and life is beginning. The lack of visible growth doesn't mean the seed is lifeless. It means it's getting ready. The same applies to your life. The waiting season is when God is working behind the scenes, aligning people, opportunities, and circumstances for your good. But this season isn't just about external preparation. It's also about internal growth. Often the person you are today isn't yet ready for what God has in store. The dreams you have may require a stronger, wiser, and more resilient version of yourself. And growth doesn't happen without resistance. The waiting refines you. It teaches patience, strengthens your faith, and shifts your perspective. You learn to find joy without conditions, to trust even when the evidence isn't there. In the silence, you come face to face with your doubts and fears, and that's where transformation happens. The waiting season also reveals what's truly in your heart. It's easy to praise God when doors are opening and life feels good, but what about when nothing seems to change? That's where your faith is tested. Will you remain hopeful even when the timeline doesn't match your expectations? Will you choose to believe that God's plans are still good even when the path ahead is unclear? True trust is built in the waiting, when you hold on despite not knowing when or how the breakthrough will come. And just because nothing is visibly happening doesn't mean God isn't speaking. Sometimes the waiting season is a call to slow down, listen, and draw closer to Him. The noise of life quiets, and you have the opportunity to hear His voice more clearly. He may be whispering lessons of surrender, patience, or purpose. He may be revealing areas of your life that need healing or growth. When you stop fighting the wait and start leaning into it, you begin to see the beauty in this stillness. It's also important to remember that waiting doesn't mean inactivity. God may not have opened the door yet, but that doesn't mean you're meant to stand idle. This is a time to prepare, to grow in the areas He's leading you to, and to steward the responsibilities you've already been given. Maybe you're called to develop your skills, strengthen your relationships, or deepen your spiritual life. Every step you take in faith, even when it feels small or insignificant, brings you closer to the promise. And when the time is right, everything will shift. The doors that were once closed will open effortlessly. The opportunities you thought were lost will return in ways you never expected. You'll look back on this season and realize that every moment of waiting was necessary. You weren't forgotten. You were being prepared. The delay wasn't a denial. It was divine timing. So if you find yourself in a waiting season, know this: God is not absent. He's working, moving, and orchestrating something beyond what you can see. Stay faithful. Keep showing up. Trust that the stage is being set, and when the curtain rises, you'll understand why the wait was worth it. Life has a way of throwing us into the storm just when we thought we were finding our footing. One moment, everything seems manageable, and the next, it feels like the ground beneath you is crumbling. The battles come from every direction: unexpected losses, strained relationships, financial struggles, and moments of overwhelming doubt. It's as if the harder you try to move forward, the more resistance you face. But what if this heaviness wasn't a sign that you're off course? What if the very battles that threaten to break you are actually proof that something greater is on the horizon? When God is preparing something extraordinary for you, life often gets unusually tough. It's not because you're being punished or forgotten. It's because the size of your blessing requires the strength that only battles can build. Just like a muscle grows through resistance, your spirit is strengthened through the trials you face. Every challenge forces you to dig deeper, to stand firmer, and to lean on God in ways you never have before. And with each battle, you're not just surviving, you're being prepared. The enemy doesn't waste energy on anything that isn't a threat. So if you feel like you're facing relentless opposition, it's often because of the potential that lies within you. The greater your purpose, the greater the resistance. The enemy sees what's ahead, the doors you're about to walk through, the lives you're destined to impact, and the blessings God is preparing. And his goal is to make you quit before you reach it. But what he doesn't realize is that every battle he throws your way only serves to make you stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the victory that's coming. There are moments when the pressure feels unbearable. You may question why God would allow such hardship if he truly loves you. But love doesn't always look like ease and comfort. But sometimes it looks like God refining you through fire, not to destroy you, but to purify and strengthen you. Gold is not made valuable without fire. Diamonds don't shine without immense pressure. And in the same way, the version of you that will step into the blessing must be refined through the battles you're facing now. It's also important to remember that battles aren't always external. Some of the toughest fights happen within. The battle against fear, self-doubt, and the temptation to give up. These inner struggles are just as significant because they shape your mindset and resilience. God uses these moments to teach you how to trust Him, how to silence the lies of the enemy, and how to stand firm even when everything within you wants to crumble. Every time you choose faith over fear, you grow stronger. Every time you refuse to give in to despair, you come one step closer to your breakthrough. And it's not just about the blessing itself. It's about who you become along the way. The strength you build, the wisdom you gain, and the resilience you develop will stay with you long after the battle is over. These are the qualities that will sustain you when the blessing arrives. Because the truth is, what God is preparing for you is not just something to receive, it's something to carry. And the weight of that blessing requires the strength that only the battle can provide. So if life feels unusually tough right now, know that it's not a sign of defeat. It's evidence that you are on the verge of something significant. The battle is not there to break you, it's there to build you. Keep going. Keep believing. The bigger the blessing, the greater the battle, and the greater the victory that awaits. There are few things more painful than facing a closed door. You set your heart on an opportunity, poured your energy into a relationship or pursued a goal with everything you had, only to watch it slip away. Rejection stings, and it often leaves you questioning what went wrong. The job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the opportunity that fell through. It can feel like a personal failure, but what if that closed door wasn't a rejection at all? What if it was a divine redirection? When God is preparing something greater for you, He often begins by closing doors that no longer serve your growth. It's not to harm you, but to protect you. What looks like rejection from your perspective is often God's way of steering you towards something far better. He sees the paths that lead to dead ends, the relationships that would drain your spirit, and the opportunities that would limit your potential. And because He loves you, He doesn't allow you to settle. That no you faced wasn't a reflection of your worth. It was a reminder that you're meant for more. But in the moment, it's hard to see it that way. When doors close unexpectedly, it's easy to feel abandoned and forgotten. You might question why God would allow you to get so close only to take it away. Yet, what you don't see is what's happening behind the scenes. God's redirection isn't about withholding blessings. It's about aligning you with the right ones. He's shifting circumstances, rearranging connections, and preparing something that will exceed your expectations. The delay and the disappointment are not signs of defeat. They are signs of protection. It's also important to remember that closed doors are often part of the refining process. They force you to grow, to reflect, and to build resilience. Every rejection pushes you to confront your doubts and strengthen your faith. It's in those moments of uncertainty that you learn to let go of your own plans and trust God's timing. That kind of trust isn't easy, but it's essential. It teaches you to believe in the promise, even when the path looks unclear. And that's when you begin to understand that God's no is never a punishment. It's a setup for something far greater. Sometimes we hold on to opportunities because they feel safe and familiar. But just because something is comfortable doesn't mean it's right. God knows what's best for you, even when you can't see it. He knows the jobs that would leave you unfulfilled, the relationships that would break your spirit, and the plans that would limit your growth. So He closes those doors, and while it may hurt in the moment, one day you'll look back and realize it was the best thing that could have happened. You'll see how every closed door led you closer to where you were always meant to be. And it's not just about reaching the destination, it's about who you become along the way. The strength, patience, and faith you build during seasons of rejection will carry you through the doors that God opens next. Those experiences will remind you that your worth isn't defined by opportunities or validation from others. Your worth comes from the one who created you, and His plans for your life are never small. So when doors close unexpectedly, don't lose hope. It's not the end of your story. It's a divine redirection. Trust that the no you received is making space for the yes that's on its way. You may not see it now, but one day it will all make sense. The closed doors will no longer feel like rejection. They'll feel like the unmistakable hand of God. leading you exactly where you're meant to be. There's something remarkable about the kind of peace that doesn't make sense. It's not the calm that comes when life is going well, when plans are falling into place and everything is as it should be. No, this is a different kind of peace. One that shows up in the middle of chaos. It's the stillness you feel even when storms are raging around you. The circumstances may be uncertain, the future unknown, but deep within your spirit, there's an assurance that something greater is ahead. This unexplainable peace is not something you can manufacture or fake. It's a gift from God, a reassurance that no matter how overwhelming life may seem, you are not alone. It's as if your soul knows a truth that your mind hasn't fully grasped yet, that the struggle won't last forever, and that what's coming is worth every difficult step. This peace whispers to you in the moments when fear tries to take over, reminding you that even though you don't see the way, the path is already being made. What's even more powerful is that this peace often comes before the breakthrough. You may still be standing in the middle of the storm, the answers you're praying for may not have arrived, and the weight of uncertainty may still press down on you. And yet, against all logic, your heart is steady. That's because God's peace isn't tied to external circumstances, it's rooted in His presence. When you're walking in alignment with His will, even the most challenging situations lose their power to shake you. It doesn't mean you won't have moments of doubt or frustration. You may still question how things will work out or why the journey has been so difficult, but that inner peace remains, reminding you that God's plan is unfolding in ways you can't yet see. It's the kind of peace that allows you to sleep soundly when everything around you suggests you should be afraid. It's what strengthens you to keep moving forward even when the road ahead is unclear. This peace also serves as confirmation. Sometimes we expect God's guidance to come in the form of loud, dramatic signs, but often it's as simple as that calm reassurance in your spirit. When you're faced with decisions and uncertainty, pay attention to the presence or absence of peace. It's God's way of leading you, of letting you know whether you're on the right path. Even if the decision doesn't make sense to others, if it's accompanied by peace, that's a sign you're exactly where you're meant to be. It's also important to understand that this peace doesn't mean the absence of challenges. In fact, the enemy often works hardest when you're on the verge of something great. But when you have that unshakable peace, the enemy's tactics lose their power. Fear may try to creep in, but it can't stay. Doubt may whisper lies, but they won't take root. That peace is a shield, guarding your heart and mind, reminding you that God's promises are greater than any opposition. And what's truly beautiful is that this peace becomes a testimony. People will notice it. They'll see the way you carry yourself, how you remain calm and grounded even when life throws its worst at you. They'll wonder how you can smile in the face of uncertainty, how you can keep believing when the odds are against you. And that's when you get to share the truth. That your peace doesn't come from the world. It comes from knowing that God is in control, that He is working all things together for your good, and that something greater is just beyond the horizon. So if you find yourself in a season where everything seems uncertain, but there's still a peace you can't explain, hold on to it. Let it be your anchor. Trust that it's not there by accident. It's a divine reminder that God is near, His hand is upon your life, and the best is yet to come. Even in the chaos, your spirit knows something greater is ahead. There comes a time when life demands more from you, more patience, more courage, more belief. It's not because you've done something wrong, but because you're being called to grow. You may feel like the ground beneath you is shifting, the certainty you once had is slipping away, and the path ahead is clouded in doubt. Every step forward feels heavier, and the temptation to give up grows stronger. But what if this season of struggle is not a punishment, but a preparation? What if the very reason you feel stretched is that God is building you for something greater? When God is preparing to bless you in ways beyond your imagination, He first strengthens your foundation, and that strengthening often comes through trust. Not the kind of trust that is easy and comfortable, but the kind that requires you to believe even when you can't see the outcome. Faith isn't truly tested when everything is going well. It's tested in the uncertainty and the waiting, in the moments when fear whispers louder than hope, and it's in those very moments that God calls you to trust more. It's human nature to want clarity. You want to see the full picture, to know how and when things will work out. But God rarely operates that way. He asks you to move forward without all the answers, to step into the unknown and believe that he will meet you there. It's not because he wants to keep you in the dark, it's because he wants you to learn to rely on him, not your own understanding. Trust isn't built when you have control, it's built when you surrender that control and believe that God is still guiding you. And the stretching, that's part of the process. Just as a muscle grows through resistance, your faith strengthens when it's challenged. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed blessing, and every unexpected detour is an opportunity to trust God on a deeper level. He's not ignoring your prayers. He's answering them in ways you may not yet understand. Sometimes the greatest blessings come wrapped in struggle, because it's in those struggles that you learn who you are and, more importantly, who God is. You may feel like the weight is too much to bear. The questions may outnumber the answers. But growth was never meant to be comfortable. God knows the reward that lies ahead, and he also knows what it will require of you. A stronger, wiser, more resilient version of yourself. The blessings he has in store aren't just for the person you are now, they're for the person you are becoming. Every step of faith you take, even when it feels like you're walking in the dark, is building that version of you. And along the way, you'll begin to see glimpses of God's hand at work. The opportunities that seemed impossible will begin to open. The strength you didn't know you had will carry you through. The lessons you once resented will become the very wisdom you'll use to navigate what's next. That's the beauty of trust. It transforms not only your circumstances, but your heart. So when the road gets difficult and your faith feels stretched to its limit, remember that it's not for nothing. You're not being broken, you're being built. The struggle is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. Trust that God sees what you cannot. Trust that every challenge is shaping you into the person who will not only receive the blessing, but carry it with grace and strength. Keep trusting even when it's hard. Keep believing even when the outcome is uncertain. Because the reward that awaits you is not just the blessing itself, it's the unshakable faith you'll gain along the way. And that faith will be the foundation for everything God has in store for you. So if you've noticed any of these signs in your own life, if things are falling apart, if the waiting feels endless, if the battles seem relentless, remember this. It's not the end of your story. It's a sign that something greater is on its way. Trust the process, lean into your faith, and know that God's plans for you are more beautiful than you can imagine. Every challenge is shaping you for what's next. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If this message resonated with you, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiration right here on Peak Ambition. And remember, your breakthrough could be closer than you think. Keep believing, keep growing, and stay ambitious. I'll see you in the next video.